Good morning. But before we start, I have here some excellent things. This is luach of the every day and what pakim we do every day. So you could, it's a hard copy. I'm putting them here. You could pick them up. Sorry? Yes, you could pick it up when we.
I'm just gonna pick.
Yes.
And it gets quiet every time.
I have to leave exactly on time to get to Matan, so I just.
Okay, great. Okay. Good morning. Today's shiur is, first of all, with feelings of thanks for the returning of Omer Notra and his friends from captivity, for the return of his body, and with prayer that the rest of the Chatufim's bodies would also be returned. And we pray for the refuah shlema of Gerald Brownstein, Gershon Chaim ben Tova Sophia. May you have a refuah shlema. Today I'd like to focus on the story of Shimshon. There are many perplexing things in the book of Shoftim, but one of the most perplexing is Shimshon. There are so many perplexing things, so it doesn't seem as perplexing as it could have been if it was on its own. Yes, we have immediately after that Pilegesh Bagiva. We have right before that the story of Yiftach. So there are many stories that are not, let's say, if someone would have wanted to give us good Jewish musar and bring this story, we wouldn't say, this tells me of Jewish greatness, right? I look at the story of Shimshon and I have many questions, because first of all, the Malach comes and tells his mother, indeed, in Perek Yud Gimel Pasuk Hey, כי נח הרע ויולד את בן ומורה לו יעלה על ראשו, כי נזיר אלוהים יהיה הנער מן הבטן, והוא יחל להושיע את ישראל מיד פלישתים. So he's going to be a Nazir Elohim. He's going to be, there's something divine, whatever Nazirut does to him, to a person, we know that he is going to be a person of God. And then we look at his life, and I don't know if that's how we would characterize Shimshon's life. First of all, he's constantly after women. And not only women, but Neshot HaArelim, as the Tanakh says it, the Philistine women's. And he constantly goes after them, and in not such a nice way. And in fact, his demise comes from him having such a weakness for his women. He's also not a shofet. In what sense is he a shofet? He doesn't lead anyone, right? If we understand shofet as a leader, we spoke about it last week, that a shofet means to lead. He's not a leader. Who is he leading? He's fighting against his people, right? If we look at Perek Tetvav, Pasuk Tet, right after one of his personal raids against Plishtim, then Vayalu Plishtim Vayachanu b'Yehuda Vayinatshu balechi. The Plishtim come to Yehuda ve'emru ish Yehuda lama alitem aleinu. And the people of Yehuda tells the Plishtim, what have we done to you? Why are you coming to fight us? So they say, no, we're not after you. We're after Shimshon, because Shimshon, for his own personal things, came and wanted, and as we read right before, right, he went and he killed many Philistines. So then the people of Yehuda, they come and they tell Shimshon, הלא ידעת כי מושלים בנו פלישתים, מה זאת עשית לנו? ויאמר להם, כאשר עשו לי, כן עשיתי להם. They did to me, I did to them. Now they're coming after you. It's not my fault, I don't care. That's not a leader. That's not a shofet. That's something else, right? He doesn't have an army, or at least we're not told of any army, right? All of his actions seem to be very personal and on his own. And he seems to not care that the rest of Israel are in danger because of what he is doing. Now, and then there's something peculiar. Before we get to something peculiar, how do you say Roshem the impression that we get from reading the stories of Shimshon is chas v'chalila of a bully, right? Someone who is very strong but has no self-control whatsoever, right? At all. Not with his women, not with keeping a secret, not with not retaliating, right? When his weaknesses, when his weaknesses get back at him, then he retaliates, but in such a way that is totally out of proportion, right? So somehow his friends found out his secret, and then what does he do? So he goes and he kills 30 plishtim and takes their chalifot and gives them. Or you killed 30 people because someone found out your secret? It's totally out of proportion. And then he goes and he burns all of Sdot Plishtim for something else. So he seems to be totally out of proportion, what we would call a bully, right? Someone who has weaknesses that doesn't know how to deal with it. And the way he deals with it is rage towards the other people. And then the strange thing is that if you look at Pasuk Yud Gimel, Pasuk Vav, and this is what makes it more complex, because if it was a straightforward bully, then that would be wonderful. So the Tanakh told us there was this book. The Tanakh tells us about bad people as well, right? In the middle of Sefer Shoftim, do you remember Avimelech? We read about Avimelech. He was a bad guy, right? Very bad guy. No one would think that he was good in any way or sense of the word. So maybe the Tanakh is just telling us about another guy that wasn't good. But that's not true, because we already saw that the Malach said that he's going to be a Nazir Elohim. Okay, so maybe he had potential to be good, and then we went bad. But look at Pasuk Yud Gimel, Perek Yud Gimel, Pasuk Vav. The Tanakh tells us, right? I'm sorry. Yudalet, Pasuk Vav. The Tanakh tells us that in the story of the lion, when he is confronted with the lion, then it's the Spirit of God that comes upon him and he manages to tear apart the lion. And here we ask, okay, so there is the Spirit of God, and what does he do with it? He tears apart the lion. Wow. What for? Why? What's the story? What is this? What Hashem is? Hashem sees it and he says, "Oh wow, what am I going to give Shimshon my spirit for? To tear apart a lion." What's the story there? And also again and again we have the titzlach alav ruach Hashem, and at times and places that seem totally inappropriate. And the last thing is that Shimshon's end is the most pathetic end we could imagine. His eyes are taken out. He's tied, and he is in front of the Plishtim that are partying, and that is basically his end. So he manages to kill many of them, take them with him when he pushes down the Mikdash. But it's still quite a pathetic end to a hero, to someone that is supposed to be Moshiach et Israel. In one sense, was he Moshiach et Israel? We're not told anywhere that Plishtim come to fight Israel, and then Shimshon comes to save Israel from Plishtim. Doesn't say anywhere. But what makes it confusing is that twice we're told that Shimshon judged Israel, meaning led Israel for 20 years. So in what sense did he lead them if it says so? And what is interesting is that it does say so in every shofet, right? What is the regular pattern that we find in Sefer Shoftim? At the end of the days of the Shoftim, it says, Hu shafat et Israel, that number of years. And also with Shimshon, if we go to the very end of his period, which is the end of Perek Tet Zayin, the last pasuk Lamed Aleph, Vehu shafat et Israel 20 shana. Okay, so first of all, the question is, when, how, and in what sense did he lead the people of Israel? Exactly. But also, for some reason, in the middle of the story, of his stories, in Pasuk Yud in Perek Yud Gimel, Pasuk Kaf Hey, I'm sorry, Pasuk, no. Yes. Yes, Tetvav Pasuk Kaf, the last parak in Perek Tetvav, Vayishpot et Yisrael b'mei Plishtim 20 shana. And then it continues with his story. Why in the middle of the story it tells us about it? So it tells us something we don't understand twice. He led the people of Israel, and it also tells it to us at a place that seems out of place. So what's going on here? So Shimshon is a riddle, right? Now there are two possible ways of understanding what's going on here. One way is that really, and we can't really say it that way, but I'll say it in a provocative way and then say it a bit less provocative. Shimshon is some folk hero that somehow found his way into the Tanakh, right? Every people, they have stories about ancient heroes that of the people at the beginning of their times that were very strong and managed to fight, and usually they have, what did you say? Hercules, right? Very similar to Hercules, right? He's very strong. His weakness is to women, and he has an Achilles heel. Oh, Achilles. Sorry, not Hercules. Hercules, right? Hercules is different. Right. Achilles. Yes. And Achilles has a heel that is his weak spot, and also Shimshon has his weak spot, which is, well, isn't it the women? No, it's his hair. Okay, so that's interesting, right? So also with Achilles, it's not exactly, he has a weakness to women, but his weak spot is his heel. Okay, so, but no, heel, hair, bottom, top. Okay, maybe there's a connection there, maybe not. I don't know, but there's a pattern here of this gibor. Now, Achilles is a Greek story, and it's interesting that the story of Shimshon. Okay, now. Where did the name Shimshon come from? Shemesh. Well, why would he have a name that has to do with the sun, with the Shemesh?
You going with the Greek gods there?
I don't know if I'm going with the Greek gods. Where was Shimshon? I'm sure you looked up the map, right? So where was Shimshon? Sorry? It was Ben So'ah Ben Eshtaol. Where's Kibbutz So'ah? Remind me today, right? Beit Shemesh is Ben So'ah Ben Eshtaol. That's more or less the place of Beit Shemesh. Why is Beit Shemesh called Beit Shemesh? There's Tel Beit Shemesh next to Beit Shemesh, an ancient Canaanite city. Why is it called Beit Shemesh? It was the house of sun, the house of the God's son. Yeah, not sun like Jesus' son, but sun like sun in the sky. Yes, I mean both avodah zarah, but avodah zarah of a different type. So, sorry, what?
That's the rising sun. The older people are all singing this.
Come on, Emma.
No, please, go Isha.
Okay. Now, having the sun as a god, the Tanakh is full of that, right? Where the Torah warns us not to worship the sun, and in Melachim, in Divrei Yamim, in Yirmiyahu, in Yechezkel, we don't need to go through the psukim. We have again and again the sun as a god is mentioned again and again. So it sounds quite coincidence that someone that is born in that area is called Shimshon. His mother was not able to have children, and comes this mysterious Malach Hashem, and then all of a sudden his mother is pregnant with a child. And what exactly is happening here? Maybe, so would say whoever say this version of Shimshon. We have here a version of a folk story, and usually those folk stories, those heroes are also sort of sons of gods, right? Achilles was somehow involved, right? There was a god involved there with a woman, and as a result, Achilles. Maybe, who knows? Okay, but whether we take it or not, what we have, it seems like something very, very foreign to the Tanakh came in here, and what do we do with it? What's happening here? Okay, another more kosher way of understanding it, and I on purpose gave you the non-kosher version of understanding, because soon you'll see I'm going to weave it into the way I understand the story. But I first want us to understand how one could understand this story theoretically. And then another more kosher way of understanding is that the book of Shoftim is basically describing a total collapse of order, but it's a process. It starts from Othniel ben Knaz, the first shofet, who's a great tzaddik. Everything goes right, wonderful. Then moves on from shofet to shofet, and slowly things go wrong. And from one shofet to the other, it's gradual. Sometimes we don't even realize it, but slowly less shvatim come out to war. Slowly they begin to fight each other. Slowly they begin to be, the shoftim are of lesser moral and religious character, right? And when we go from shofet to shofet, we could see it, right? The last shofet before, right? We have Gidon, who's quite in the middle somewhere, right? And then we have, well, Avimelech is an outside story altogether, but then we continue to go down, and we get to Yiftach, who's quite a questionable character himself, but somehow still leads the people. And finally, we get to Shimshon, which is a total bully. Yeah, so that's a way of understanding, right? So there is a gradual decline from Othniel ben Knaz to Shimshon. That is so the pattern of that we're given at the beginning of Sefer Shoftim. You remember from last week that the pattern is Reisal sin, or Shofet comes and saves them. That is the pattern, but it is a declining pattern, meaning it goes down and down. Every time the saving is less by a lesser person, and the sins are worse, and it goes down and down until it gets to Shimshon. And also, it's not only the moral character and the religious character of the Shofet, but also the significance of his doing. The first Shoftim, they do their job, right? When there is a milchama against Canaan, then Dvorah and Ehud, they beat the Canaanim. We don't hear about them anymore. Then we have a problem with Midian. Comes Gidon, we don't hear about them anymore. Then we have Moab Ammon, comes Yiftach, beats them up, we don't hear about them yoter. These are total victories, anitzachon muchlat, right? And then come the Plishtim. And the Plishtim, we don't have anitzachon muchlat. So first of all, every time it's a nitzachon muchlat, however, against smaller nations, okay? So it's still, there is decline, but still, and then we have this fight against the Plishtim, and the Plishtim, it's not even a nitzachon. Okay, it's this sort of not so clear what's going on here. So we have this decline from one to another, and in that sense, perhaps Sefer Shoftim is an explanation to Sefer Melachim. Meaning, Sefer Shoftim tells us, listen, this is what happens when there aren't kings. And why do we need this? Because to begin with, the Tanakh is not so favorable towards Melachim. And the Tanakh needs to justify why is it that we need Melachim if it's not such a good idea. And like Churchill, they tell us it's the worst idea except for all the other things that we tried. And here in Sefer Shoftim, we tried the idea of living without a melech. But this is what happened. It's a nicer idea. It's a nobler idea where we don't need a king and we could live ish tachat gafno and tachat teinato. But what it leads to is after this gradual decline, it leads to a period like Shimshon. And that is not what we want. And that will also fit very well with the two appendices at the end of Shoftim of Pesel Micha and Pilegesh Bagiva, because this is at the end. Sefer Shoftim wants to end with a climax, with a bang, this to drive its point home. It says, you see, we ended with Shimshon. Not only did we end with Shimshon, but you remember there was a Pilegesh Bagiva, and there was Pesel Micha, and all of these bad things are because of the Shoftim leading us to Shmuel, who would lead us, who would bring us to the kings at the end of the day. So that is another possible understanding. But according to these both understanding, Shimshon is not a positive character. Either he's just a hero that has nothing to do with anything and somehow found his way betaut our Tanakh. I don't like that. We can't say that. We're not allowed to say that, and therefore we have to understand it in a different way. But I'm just putting it there because I'm going to use it for something soon. Or another possibility is that Shimshon is really a nobody and a bully, and this is what the Tanakh is telling us. This is what you get to if you try not to have kids. Okay. Before I move on to my third possibility, I want us to pay attention to Shimshon and his eyes. Shimshon is a guy that follows his eyes, right? In Perek Yudalet Pasuk Aleph, let's look at Perek Yudalet, the beginning of Perek. Vayered Shimshon Timnata, Vayar Isha Betimnata Mibnot Lishtim. He sees a woman. Vayar Vayaged Le'aviv Uleimo, Vayomer Isha Ra'iti Betimnata Mibnot Lishtim, Ve'ata So he sees her, and that's enough for her. It doesn't need to talk to her. It doesn't need to. She looks good. She looks good. Great. I love her. And his parents tell him, just a minute. עמי אישה כי אתה הולך לקחת אישה מפלישתים הערלים, ויאמר שמשון אל אביו, אותה קח לי כי היא ישרה בעיניי. I want her. My eyes like her. Okay, so that reminds us of two psukim immediately, one very close to us, right? בימים ההם מלך בישראל, איש הישר בעיניו יעשה, but also ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם. And in fact, also what happens to him at the end, what do Plishtim do to him before they take out his eyes, right? So and Chazal tell us that he was punished with his eyes because he followed his eyes. So he seems like, okay, a person that goes after his eyes. So once we know all of this, I now want to give a third possibility of how to see Shimshon, a possibility that incorporates the two other possibilities that we saw, but turns Shimshon into a great person that I think he was. He was great in a different way to other people that we might know from the Tanakh and later history of Am Yisrael, but he was great in a very important sense that the Tanakh, that Sefer Shoftim, makes it a point to tell us about his greatness. So first of all, as we said at the beginning, he's a riddle. And because he's a riddle, he likes to say riddles, right? So it's very, very interesting, right? So in Perek Yudalet, Pasuk Yudalet, Shimshon sits with his buddies, his Plishtim buddies, right? And he tells them, so they tell him, yes, give us our riddle. Give us your riddle. Okay, so he has a riddle. That is his riddle. Now, when we say that is his riddle, give us your riddle. Your riddle could mean the riddle that you want to tell us, but it also could mean you are a riddle. We want to understand you. Give us what, and he tells them, Me'az yatsa matok. Me'az yatsa matok, it's not just a riddle that Shimshon is saying, it's a riddle that defines him. He's Me'az, but from him, matok is going to come out. That is how he defines himself. Yes? And that is why it is so important. Shimshon is a riddle in the sense not only to us, but also to the people of his time, to his Plishtim friends, but not only to them, even to those that we would think are those who are supposed to know Shimshon the most. Who are the people that know someone the most?
Parents.
Exactly, his parents. And what does the Tanakh tell us again and again? That Shimshon is not telling his parents something. And at first, it's regarding something that seems totally insignificant. First of all, why does the Tanakh tell us the story about the lion? Who cares? I understand the story about the Lechi Chamo, he's killing Plishtim, and somehow that is the Plishtim are the enemies of Am Yisrael. the lions are not the enemies of Am Yisrael, but it goes on and tells us this whole story and that there was a chidah. Why doesn't it just tell us that the Plishtim cheated him in a chidah? We don't need to know what the chidah is. And therefore he got angry and he went and he sent the foxes with lapidim on their tails to burn. No, that he doesn't do that. Then he went and he killed 30 Plishtim and took their chalifot. Okay, but why tell us the riddle itself? What is so important with the riddle itself? But it's not only what is so important with the riddle itself, it is also, look at Pasuk Dalet, still in, yes, still in Perek Yud Dalet. ואביו ואימו לא ידעו כי מהשם היא כי תואנה ומבקש מפלישתים ובעת ההיא פלישתים מושלים בישראל. So when he is arguing with his parents about marrying this Plishti girl, then the Tanakh tells us ואביו ואימו לא ידעו. There is something they don't know here. They're missing something here. And then again, it tells us that regarding the lion, פסוק ו' ותצלח עליו רוח השם וישסהו כשסה גדי ומאומה אין בידו ולא הגיד לאביו ולאמו את אשר עשה. Why is it important to tell us that he didn't tell his parents what he did? Who cares? Okay, so he didn't tell them. And then it goes on to say, when he goes on and he sees the dvash, then too, ויתן להם ויאכלו, in פסוק ט' ולא הגיד להם כי מגביית האריה רדה הדבש. So the Tanakh tells us again and again, Shimshon is not saying. So Shimshon is a very introverted person. He has a secret. He has a secret that he's not telling anyone. And that secret is me'az yatzamato. He's not telling anyone about his strength, and he's not telling anyone about his sweet spot. Yeah, he's not telling anyone about anything that is going on inside. He is a very private person. He has a riddle. And then when they find his riddle, what does he tell them when they find out? How did they find out? Remind me. How did they find out?
The woman betrayed.
Exactly. They went and they asked his wife, because his wife, he did tell her that story, right? And and the answer, and she gave them the answer with the lion. And then what is his answer to them? In Pasuk Yudchet, Vayomer lahem, Lulei charashtem be'eglati, lo metzatem chidati. If you wouldn't have plowed with my, how do you say, eglah, with my calf? Yes, with my calf, you wouldn't have known my riddle. Okay, so he said, you plowed with my calf, therefore you know my riddle. Just a minute. Isn't it the other way around? Shimshon is plowing with Plishtim's calf, and therefore he knows their riddle. Okay, I'll explain what I mean. Well, plowing with their calf, we all understand what that means. He keeps on going after Plishtim's women.
Why that analogy? Why do you use that terminology?
That is a good question, but that could be, you know, like locker room talk. Yes, that's right. That's like, but there is
vernacular of the time. That's what they use.
Yeah, but it's a good because charashtem could mean plowed and also cheresh leimor. The meraglim came. There is a lot of plays on words here, and but we won't. And chida could mean a riddle, and it could mean also my chad, myself, like the most. I'm sorry.
Oneness.
Yes, my oneness, like what describes me, what makes me who I am. And there's a lot of plays on words that we could have here, but we won't get into it right now. In what sense is Shimshon choresh be'eglat Plishtim? In the sense that he keeps on, his friends are Plishtim, not Bnei Israel. These buddies that he's sitting with at his wedding, telling them these chidot and doing this. His wife, who are these? These are Plishtim. Shimshon wasn't in Israeli circles. He was in Plishtim's circle. That was his milieu. Those were the people he hanged out with. And so he is choresh be'eglatam, and therefore he's yodea chidatam. Now, what does it mean yodea chidatam? Why do you need to know the chidah of Plishtim? So now I'm saying this as a possibility, even though I don't know it's true. Right before Shimshon, we barely hear about Plishtim as troublemakers to the people of Israel. We have Knanim, we have Midyanim, we have Moavim, we have Amalekim even. We don't have too many Plishtim. They're mentioned once, but as something insignificant. Now, there are Plishtim that are mentioned still even Bimei Avraham, but archaeologists and historians say today that it's probably not the same Plishtim. The Plishtim that come during the days of that we have during the days of Shimshon are a foreign nation that are coming from Kafto, that are coming from the Greek islands, and these are a new and strange people, and they're much stronger than all the locals, and that is why Israel, from now on, not only during the days of Shimshon, but Shmuel, Shaul, David, these Plishtim are going to be a real problem for the people of Israel. And usually they're even stronger than the people of Israel because they have blacksmiths, they have technology that the people of Israel don't have. The Lechi Chamo that Shimshon finds and he fights Plishtim with, that is a symbol of that, I think. What do they fight with? They fight with swords, with spears, but he fights with the how do you say the cheek of a donkey. What is the cheek of a donkey, of an ass? The cheek of an ass it looks like a sickle, and they used to use it as a sickle. This I read in something. Nathanael Ellinson, the brother of Teila Shalom, wrote. It's brilliant. He's brilliant. You must see it, watch his YouTube, so you must read everything that he writes because he's really, really good. He says you take that they used to use it to as they would take that half a circle bone. I'm sorry.
A jawbone.
Yes, a jawbone, and they would replace the teeth of the animal with some sharp stones, and then they would use it to cut to, and that's quite a strong weapon. So yes, you could like right, you could hit people with it. So it's not just that he happened to find but it's a weapon of those who don't have steel, those who don't have blacksmith. And in a few places in Tanakh, right, it says that the people of Israel didn't have that technology, didn't reach us, and it's something that the Plishtim had. So he's saying, with this lechi chamo, I don't have steel, I don't have swords or spears, but I have this lechi chamo, and I managed to kill 1,000 Plishtim with it. Okay, so it's this mysterious people with mysterious technology, with a foreign culture, very different to us. And it takes one to know one. In order to really understand how to fight them, we have to first understand their technology. We have to understand their culture. We have to understand the way they think, what ticks them. Because if we're fighting them, we can't really fight someone we don't know. Okay? We have to know the enemy. And Shimshon is the one that really, he's choresh be'eglatam, and he knows chidatam. He's more of a plishti than of a Yehudi, as far as those that he goes around with. Even more than that, the people of Yehuda, they're masgim to Plishtim. They see him as a troublemaker. Okay. So I think after the story of the Lechi of Chamo, why does it say there, Vehu shafat et Israel 20 shana? I think because the Tanakh is telling me, I'm going to tell you a few more stories about Shimshon, but I want you to understand that what happened here with the story of the Lechi, that is how he was Shofet et Israel. He didn't lead them like any other leader. It's a new type of leader or a different type of leader. Someone who fights Plishtim with the Lechi of the Chamo and then is about to almost dies of tzama, asks Hashem for help, and Hashem helps him, which proves that he's on the right path. And that is how he's Shofetet Israel. But what does that mean? Why is that Shofetet Israel? And a shining example of how Shimshon led Israel, I think Shimshon led Israel the same way that William Wallace led the Scots in the year 1305? Something like that. Yes? Yes. Freedom. Yes. So now William Wallace in many ways was a fail, right? He's brought to London and has the most gruesome death there, and right, as you all remember from the movie, right? But I actually read it was even more gruesome than described in the movie. It was terrible, terrible, terrible what they did to him. But a few years after him, Robert the Bruce gets up and becomes the king of Scotland, and Scotland regains its sovereignty for at least a while. And right, so he failed, but he paved the way for Robert the Bruce. So I think Shimshon is that kind of a leader. He failed, but he paved the way to anything that is going to come afterwards. And it had to be that way because indeed, Sefer Shoftim does describe a gradual decline. And we're at the very bottom of the pit. We need something else to take us out of there. What does that mean? If someone falls into a pit, he could try and imagine somehow that he's at the outside and that to jump and reach to the top of the pit and pull himself up, but he's not high enough. He won't get there. So he could try and jump and imagine that he's there. He's at the bottom. In order to be at the bottom, he has to first use his feet that are at the bottom, and then try and climb up with his hands and claw into the sides of the pit that is very low. So when Am Yisrael are in a low situation, and I think this is what Chazal mean when they say Yiftach bedoro k'Shmuel bedoro. If Shmuel would have come before Shimshon, he wouldn't have what to do. No one would have listened to him. He wouldn't have the ground, the stage wouldn't have been set by someone that would prepare it for Shmuel to come. It was Shimshon that set that stage that allowed Shmuel to come. And how did he do that? So we had Yehuda that are weak people, and they allowed just Plishtim to walk all over them and to basically take them over. And that would have been the end of Am Yisrael. We have this strong culture, this strong, strange foreign nation that are so strong, we don't know what to do with them. We don't know. But comes Shimshon, and through getting very close to the enemy, understands how to fight them, and he manages to fight them, but on his own, he can't really do it. But he could show the people of Israel, he could show Ish Yehuda that there is a way. And after he dies, the story doesn't end with his death. And that is the beautiful thing. When you look at the end of Perek Ketvav, Tetzain, sorry. So right, the heroic Shimshon's last heroic act, where he brings down the temple on him, the temple of Dagon on him, and all the Plishtim that are there. But then, וירדו אחיו וכל בית אביו, וייסעו אותו ויעלו, ויקברו אותו בין צורה ובין אשתאול בקבר מנוח אביו. That is how the story ends. Meaning, after his death, his brothers. Now, who are his brothers? And this is. He had no brothers. None we don't know. He had no brothers. His mother was an Akara. So who are his brothers?
Maybe afterwards. Maybe afterwards, she.
I don't think so. What? I know. But what? Right. But what?
What does the
No, but Hanan. Oh, that she also. Yes. Right. But it could be that his brothers means like when we say our brothers, the people of Yehuda. So v'chol beit aviv v'yisu oto v'yalu oto v'yikberu oto ben soal ben ishtaol. They take him and they go deep into Plishtim country. Now these are people of Yehuda that up until now were very fearful of the people of Plishtim, and now they find the courage to walk in and take the body of one of their brothers and bring it back. We could think about the connotations to these days, right? And bring it back to Bein Tzora and Bein Eshtaol, and to bury him there in the where the rest of his family is buried. He brings the courage to the people of Israel that allows them to then continue and build upon it, where we have Shmuel, and then Shaul, David, and Shlomo, etc.
It'd be nice if it was the same Yehuda that came and angry at him in the beginning because he was leading them to war when he burned down the
Right. The same people that came to him angry at the
beginning,
beginning, they're the ones that now go and take out his body from Asa. Very good. Very good. But this explains to us why the Malach, right at the very beginning in Perek Yud Gimel, when the Malach tells the mother of Shimshon, doesn't say what her name is, but Chazal tell us her name was Hatzlel Poni, or something like that. Yes, Hatzlel Poni. So, sorry. So when he comes to her and he tells her, and he tells her what Shimshon would be destined for, he would be destined to Hu Yachel Leoshia et Yisrael. He will begin to save Israel. He's not going to save them, but he will be the beginning of a long process that will end with the saving of Israel. So if we go back to the two other possibilities of understanding Shimshon, right? We said this mythological hero or total failure. I think we have here somewhat of a different story. We have a character that is an image of those mythological creatures or heroes that we find Dafka maybe in Greek mythology, because he is fighting the Plishtim. It is one of those heroes that could fight the Plishtim that are coming from the Greek island. That is that foreign culture is coming to us, and so it has to be one of. So it's a very similar. What they see as a hero is someone that needs to fight them. He's coming close to them. He's understanding them, and in a sense, he is able to really to be the one that fights them. And yes, there is a decline, but therefore you need the one that is in order to get up from the bottom, you need to fight at the bottom. You can't fight at the top when your problems are at the bottom. But I think it's not just that we're there, so we need Nebuch, we need a Shimshon to take us out of there. I think the message of the Tanakh is more than that. And I think it's very important to us as Western people living in a culture that seems to us as being much elevated to barbaric culture that used to be once upon a time. Sometimes we try and think or ignore aspects of existence that are not evident to us. It could be in many trivial things. So it could be when we go into the supermarket and we buy a chicken or a piece of meat. As far as we're concerned, they grow on the shelves in the supermarket, right? But that's not true, right? They had a very painful and gruesome experience, the creatures that they were, before we took them. Now, in ancient time, or not in ancient, in the non-modern world, it would have been obvious because it would have taken place right in front of me in my own yard. I would see the animal crying before it slaughters, and then I would eat the meat, and that was just part of life. But today we managed to I don't know if sanitize, to like disassociate ourselves from all of that aspect, because it happens far away. We don't see it, we don't realize it, and then we imagine that the world is not the place it actually is, because we don't realize those places, or the fact that we're able to sit here right now, and I'm not talking necessarily about Israel. In any Western country, we sit and it's peaceful and it's nice, and we're not concerned about all kinds of enemies coming and jumping on us. That is because there are secret services of whatever country you want to think about that are somewhere doing things that we don't want to think about. And we disassociate ourselves from those aspects of existence and as if they don't exist. And I think the message of Shimshon is that, yes, we want to have a letaken olam b'malchut Shaddai, and we do want to have that moral world, but you cannot have the top of morality, the rosho b'shamayim, if you don't have raglayim mutzavot arza, if you don't have if you're not, as the Torah says about David, he says, Kol malchei mizrach u'ma'arav are doing what they're doing, v'ani mitasek b'shapir v'shilya, right? The Torah is describing David as someone who is taking care of the most disgusting elements of existence, but that is because le'atir isha le'ba'ala, meaning the beauty of the love between a couple, even that, the most beautiful thing in the world, has other aspects that we have to pay attention to in order to understand. So, lesakem et kol ma sherainu. Shimshon is a riddle. But through the riddle that he asks, we are able to understand his own riddle, and that is, Lulei charashtem be'eglati, lo yadatem chidati. His riddle is, I get close to Plishtim, I understand their strength, and I take their strength, and from that azut, from that strength, yatsa matok, I'm able to bring out sweetness. Now, the sweetness might only come out during the days of David and Shlomo, but eventually it will come out. So that is Shimshon, that is the book of Shoftim, and next week we'll move on to Shmuel, that came afterwards.
I got a question about setting Shoftim.
Yes.
If we turn away from God, we think He goes switch off the rain. And they turn away from God, there's no mention of the rain. What's the...
Very good question. Very good question. Because in Melachim there is.
Yes.
In Melachim it is mentioned in the days of Eliyahu, right? Especially.
But that's in Eliyahu class.
Good question. Good question.
Could you add?
Yeah, better.
I mean,